Not all traps look like traps. Some look like love. Some look like loyalty. And by the time you realize you've been caught, it's already too late. The first time I realized I owed her everything, we were 18. It wasn't a single dramatic moment. Not one of those stories where someone jumps in front of a bullet or drags you out of a burning building. It was quieter, slower, the kind of thing you don't recognize until years later, when you look back and see the invisible chains that have been tying you to someone all along. I was lost back then, not in a dramatic, self-destructive way, but in the slow, suffocating way that creeps up on you when you don't know what you're supposed to do with your life. Everyone else seemed to have a plan. College acceptances, career paths, relationships heading somewhere. I had nothing. My dad had left when I was 12. My mom did her best, but she had to work 2 jobs just to keep us afloat. I learned early that you don't ask for things. You don't expect them. You just survive. She was different. She came from a stable home, 2 parents who loved her, a future that had already been neatly mapped out for her. And yet, she never made me feel like less. She was there for every bad day, every quiet frustration, every time I wanted to scream but didn't have the words. She listened. She never judged. She made me feel seen. And then came that one night. I had just lost a dead-end job I didn't even like. My mom was behind on rent, and I was drowning in the pressure of being the man of the house when I could barely keep myself together. I needed to get out just for a few hours. She found me sitting on the hood of my beat-up car in an empty parking lot, staring at nothing. She didn't ask questions. She just climbed up beside me and sat there in silence, legs swinging over the edge, the city lights stretching out in front of us. "You don't have to fix everything right now," she had said eventually. "You're allowed to feel lost." I don't know why that was what broke me, but it did. I told her everything, the fear, the exhaustion, the feeling that no matter what I did, it was never going to be enough. She was the first person I ever admitted it to. And she just sat there. She didn't try to tell me I was wrong. She didn't try to make it better. She just stayed. I didn't realize it then, but that was the moment she became permanent in my life. So when we started dating years later, it felt inevitable. Our families had always been close, our lives intertwined from childhood. When she told me she had always known we were meant to be, I believed her, because she had saved me. She had been the one constant when my world felt like it was falling apart. So when she asked me to marry her, I didn't hesitate. Because how do you say no to someone who has already given you so much? How do you doubt someone who was there for you when no one else was? How do you see the knife in their hand, when they were the one who taught you to trust in the first place? I'd always trusted her. Even when life got messy, even when work kept me up at night, even when we drifted into the quiet routine that long-term couples always seem to settle into, I never doubted her. Because why would I? She wasn't just my wife. She was the one person who had never let me down. That's why I didn't question it at first. It started with something small. One evening, I walked into the living room and saw her on her phone curled up on the couch. Nothing unusual until she flinched. It was barely noticeable, just a tiny flicker of movement as she tilted her screen away from me. I almost ignored it, but then she locked the phone a little too quickly. "Everything okay?" I asked, more out of instinct than suspicion. She looked up at me and smiled, easy and natural. "Yeah, just checking emails." A perfectly normal answer. But I knew her. She hated checking emails, especially after work. If her boss sent her something after hours, she'd complain about it for 20 minutes. But that night, nothing. Just a polite, casual smile as she slipped her phone into her pocket. I could have let it go. But something about the way she had moved, like she was hiding something, like she didn't want me to see, it stuck with me. Still, I told myself it was nothing, because it had to be nothing. Over the next few weeks, little things started to pile up. She was on her phone more, always tilting it away from me, always locking it the second I entered the room. Her laughter. God, that's what got me. She started laughing at her phone. Not at memes or videos, not at anything I could see, just at someone on the other side of that screen. And then there were the nights she started staying up late. "You come into bed?" I asked one night, when I found her sitting at the kitchen table, her phone in her hands, fingers moving fast over the screen. She looked up, surprised, as if she hadn't heard me come in. "Oh yeah, just a few more minutes." I didn't think much of it, until I woke up hours later and realized she still wasn't in bed. The final straw came when she left her laptop open one morning before work. I wasn't trying to be that guy, the jealous husband who checked his wife's messages, but when I walked past the kitchen counter, I saw my name. A notification popped up on her screen, a preview of an email, a password reset request for a dating app, and beneath it, my wife's email address. I froze. The logical part of my brain tried to justify it. Maybe it was spam. Maybe someone was using her email. Maybe. But then another notification popped up. A confirmation. An account linked to her name. And just like that, everything shifted. All those little moments. The late nights, the hidden phone, the laughter. They weren't coincidences. They weren't harmless. They were warnings. And I had ignored them. I should have confronted her right then. I should have asked. Demanded answers. But something inside me held me back, because for the first time in our entire relationship, I wasn't sure I would believe what she had to say. So instead, I took my phone out of my pocket, and I downloaded the app. If she was looking for someone, I was going to find out exactly what she was searching for. I sat in my car, fingers tightening around my phone as the app finished installing. My heart was pounding, not from excitement, not from fear, but from something colder. I wasn't just looking for proof. I was setting a trap. Creating the profile was easy. Too easy. I picked a fake name, nothing flashy, nothing that would stand out. Just someone normal, someone she wouldn't suspect. For the profile picture, I scrolled through stock images until I found the right one. A man just attractive enough to catch her attention, but not so perfect that he seemed fake. Then came the bio. I thought about it for a long time. What would she be looking for? What kind of man would make her bite? I kept it simple. Looking for something real, tired of games, just want to connect. It felt ironic writing those words, because this was a game. And I was about to find out exactly how deep it went. I swiped right on her profile. Then I waited. Minutes passed, an hour, nothing. Maybe she wouldn't take the bait. Maybe she would see through it. Maybe match. The screen blinked. A notification. She had swiped right. For a second I just stared at the screen. There was a part of me that had still been holding on to hope, some stupid, desperate hope that this was all a misunderstanding. That maybe, just maybe, there was a reasonable explanation. But there wasn't, because here she was, on a dating app, matching with a complete stranger, matching with me. And then, the first message came in. Hey there, you seem interesting. Tell me about yourself. I swallowed hard, gripping the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. I had spent years believing this woman loved me, years trusting her. And now? Now I was nothing more than a stranger she was flirting with on the internet. I cracked my knuckles, took a deep breath, and started typing. I think you and I might have a lot in common. My fingers hovered over the keyboard and my heart pounding in my ears. Every part of me wanted to scream at her, to demand answers, to let her know I had caught her in the act. I needed to know more. I think you and I might have a lot in common. I sent the message, watching the 3 little dots appear almost instantly. She was eager. Oh yeah, what makes you say that? I leaned back in my seat staring at her words. There was no hesitation, no guilt, just effortless, natural flirting, like she had done this 100 times before. So I kept going. Let's just say I understand what it's like to feel trapped, to feel like there's something missing. It wasn't a lie. Her response came fast. Wow, that's exactly it. I feel like I've been missing something for so long, you know? My stomach twisted. I could see it now. The excuses she had been feeding herself, the justifications she had been using. She wasn't a cheater. She was just missing something. But what was she looking for? Tell me, I typed. What do you need that you're not getting? A pause. A long one. I watched as the dots flickered in and out. She was thinking. Then, her. Passion. I clenched my jaw. You don't have that in your life? I asked, already knowing the answer. Not anymore. It's just routine now. No spark, no excitement. I need more. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. We had built a life together, a home, a marriage, years of shared memories. And here she was, reducing it all to something boring. So you're looking for someone to change that? I asked, my hands shaking as I typed. Maybe. If I find the right person. But it has to stay low-key. I don't want to hurt anyone. I nearly laughed out loud. She didn't want to hurt anyone? Too late for that. We kept talking. I let her think she was getting to know me. I asked her about her interests, her dreams, what kind of man she found exciting. She described someone who wasn't me. She liked men who were spontaneous, mysterious, a little dangerous, someone who would sweep her off her feet. Not the man who had built a life with her, not the man who had loved her. I could barely breathe, but I wasn't done yet. So what happens if you meet the right guy? I asked. Would you leave him? The 3 dots appeared, flickered, stopped. I don't know. Maybe. If he made me feel something real. My blood went ice cold. She was ready to throw everything away, and she had no idea she was saying it to her own husband. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was done. I had a plan. It was simple. Set up a meeting, catch her in the act, watch the shock on her face when she realized the man she had been flirting with for days was her own husband. And I wanted to see the panic. I wanted to see her squirm, so I set the trap. I think we should meet, I messaged. You and me. Somewhere quiet, no pressure. She didn't answer right away. For the first time since we started talking, she hesitated. Then, I don't know. I've never done this before. I almost laughed. She still had the audacity to play innocent. No expectations, I assured her. Just 2 people having a drink. Another long pause. Then, okay, but somewhere discreet. I gave her the time, the place. I sat in the dimly lit bar, my fingers drumming lightly on the table, eyes fixed on the entrance. My heart pounded in anticipation, my mind already picturing the moment she'd walk in, scanning the room, expecting to meet a stranger, only to find me. I wanted to see the confusion, the panic in her eyes, the sheer disbelief when she realized who she had been talking to all along. I wanted her to know that I had played her game and played it better. Minutes ticked by. I nursed a drink, forcing myself to remain calm, but my grip tightened around the glass each time the door swung open. And then, my phone vibrated on the table. Her name flashed on the screen. My pulse jumped as I picked up. Hey, I answered, keeping my voice steady. Hey, she said, casual smooth, not too smooth. Where are you? A strange unease settled in my chest. Something wasn't right. I glanced at the entrance, expecting to see her stepping in. Instead, my gaze caught movement just outside. A woman stood across the street, phone pressed to her ear. My stomach twisted. Something about her posture, the way she angled herself, hiding just enough in the shadows, sent a chill down my spine. Why? I asked, my voice quieter now, more cautious. The woman turned slightly, just enough for me to catch a glimpse of her face beneath the streetlights. My breath hitched. My wife. My blood turned to ice. She wasn't looking around for me. She was looking at me. And then she moved. Fast. I shot up from my seat, nearly knocking my drink over, my heart slamming against my ribs as I rushed toward the door. But by the time I got outside, she was gone. Just gone. Like a ghost slipping into the night, vanishing before I could even call her name. I stood there, my hands clenched into fists, my breath uneven. She had figured it out. I didn't know how. Maybe I had been too obvious? Maybe she had sensed something was off, or maybe, just maybe, she had always been one step ahead. Either way, the game was over. She had seen me before I saw her, and instead of walking into my trap, she had slipped away, erasing every trace of her crime before I could even confront her. When I got home, the house was silent. I found her curled up in bed, her breathing slow and even, like she had been asleep for hours, like she hadn't just spent the night dodging me. The next morning she smiled over breakfast as if nothing had changed. She kissed me on the cheek before I left for work, humming to herself in the kitchen, playing her role so perfectly I almost believed it. That night I checked the app. Her profile was gone. Our match erased, like it had never existed. She had wiped every trace, covering her tracks flawlessly, leaving me with nothing. No proof, no confrontation, no justice. I had lost. Because 2 weeks later I got the call. I was at work when my phone buzzed, and when I answered, a sharp voice on the other end made my blood run cold. Sir, we need you to come down to the station. Your wife has been detained on charges of financial fraud. I arrived at the police station with my mind racing, my pulse hammering so hard I could barely hear the officer speaking as he led me inside. My wife, The woman who had spent weeks playing the perfect devoted partner was now sitting in a cold interrogation room, accused of something I hadn't even begun to wrap my head around. Financial fraud? How the hell had we gotten here? Through the one-way glass, I saw her sitting at the table, her back stiff, her fingers intertwined so tightly her knuckles had gone white. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She wasn't even confused. If anything, she looked irritated, like someone who had been inconvenienced, not someone who had just been arrested. The officer beside me cleared his throat. "Mr. Callahan, your wife has been accused of fraudulent activity and misappropriation of funds. A man, her alleged partner, filed a complaint stating she took a substantial sum of money from him under false pretenses." My stomach twisted. What kind of false pretenses? The officer hesitated, then flipped open a file and slid a stack of printed screenshots toward me. My breath caught as I scanned the messages. Promises, lies, money. A man named Jason Whitmore had come forward, claiming my wife had been involved with him romantically for months. Not just casually, seriously. She had made him believe she loved him, made him trust her enough to send her money. Thousands of dollars. She told him she was struggling, told him she needed financial support to leave her unhappy marriage. And he had wired it to her without question. Until, of course, she stopped answering his calls. Until he realized she had never planned on leaving her husband at all. Until he figured out he had been played. The messages between them were stomach-churning. She told him she was trapped, that she was with me out of obligation, that she had been looking for a way out for years, that she just needed a little more time, a little more help, a little more money. And then, just like she had done with me on the dating app, she vanished. No goodbye, no explanation. She just erased him. Only this time she hadn't accounted for one thing. A man scorned. Jason hadn't taken his loss quietly. He had gone to the police, bringing every receipt, every transaction, every desperate, lovesick message she had ever sent. And now she was here, trapped in a mess of her own making. The officer exhaled slowly. "Mr. Callahan, we're aware you weren't involved, but we need to ask, how much did you know about your wife's financial activities?" I stared through the glass, my hands curling into fists at my sides. How much did I know? Nothing. And everything. I had known something was wrong. I had known she was hiding something. I had spent weeks chasing her, playing a game I thought I had lost. But now, as I watched her sit there, alone for once, with no way out, I realized something. She had spent years controlling the narrative, controlling me, making me feel like I owed her, like I needed her, like I could never question the person she had convinced me she was. But now the lie had caught up with her. And for the first time, I wasn't the fool in the story. She was. The officer asked me again, his voice calm but firm. "Mr. Callahan, did you have any knowledge of your wife's activities? Any indication she was involved with other men or manipulating them for money?" I tore my eyes away from the interrogation room and exhaled slowly. "No," I said, my voice steady but bitter. "I didn't know, but I should have." Because now, looking back, it was so damn obvious. The subtle changes in her spending habits, the extra shopping bags that she brushed off as great sales, the sudden unexplained deposits in our joint account, money I never questioned, because why would I? We were married. I trusted her. And that trust had turned me into a blind man walking straight off a cliff. The officer gave me a knowing look, one he had probably given 100 other spouses before me, the ones who had ignored the signs, the ones who had convinced themselves that love meant never having to doubt someone. "Would you like to see her?" he asked after a beat. My stomach clenched. A part of me wanted to turn around and walk out, leave her here to rot, let her face the consequences of the mess she had created. But another part, the part of me that had spent years by her side, the part that had once owed her everything, needed to look her in the eyes one last time. "Yeah," I said, I want to see her." When I stepped into the interrogation room, she didn't look up right away. Her fingers tapped against the metal table, her nails neat and perfect as always. The only sign of tension was the tightness in her jaw, the flicker of irritation in her eyes when she finally met my gaze. She wasn't scared. She wasn't sorry. She was angry. At me. At Jason. At the world for not playing by her rules. "You shouldn't be here," she said smoothly, her voice devoid of the warmth she had always faked so well. I pulled out the chair across from her and sat down slowly. "Why? Because I wasn't supposed to find out?" She let out a quiet, bitter laugh, shaking her head. "Jason is a fool. He actually thought I loved him. She rolled her eyes, her lips curving into something that wasn't quite a smirk, but wasn't regret either. I gave him what he wanted. A fantasy. And he paid for it. That was the deal. I felt a slow, burning disgust rise in my chest. The deal? I repeated, my voice tight. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes searching mine like she was still trying to find some trace of the man she could manipulate. Do you really care about what I did to him? She asked softly. Or are you just mad that you weren't enough? The words landed like a slap. I stared at her, not recognizing the woman in front of me anymore. Or maybe for the first time I was finally seeing her clearly. You're a real piece of work, I murmured. She didn't flinch. You knew who I was when you married me. The worst part, she was right. Deep down, I had always known she was capable of bending the truth, of manipulating situations in her favor. I had seen it before, how easily she could lie, how effortlessly she could make people believe whatever she wanted them to. I had just never thought she'd do it to me. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. You know what? You're right. I should have seen this coming. I pushed back my chair and stood up, meeting her gaze one last time. But I won't make that mistake again. For the first time since I walked in, something flickered in her expression. Not fear. As I walked out of the station, the weight I had been carrying for years finally lifted. She wasn't my problem anymore. She had built a life on lies, manipulation, and deception, and now it had all collapsed on top of her. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. She had spent years convincing me I owed her, that I was lucky to have her, that I needed her, but in the end, she was the one who had lost everything, and I was finally done playing her game.